Leo's thumb moved in the dark. Up, down, and up. The screen of his phone was off, but his muscle remembered the rhythm. He was lying in his college dorm room at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. His eyes felt dry, like they were full of sand. The room smelled of stale coffee and the low, dusty hum of the heater. For 3 hours, he had been scrolling through the lives of people he didn't know. He had seen a sunset in Bali, a cat dancing in London, and a stranger's expensive lunch in New York. When he finally put the phone down, his own room felt smaller. It felt colder. He realized he couldn't remember a single thing he had seen. The images had washed over him like cold, gray static, leaving nothing behind but a hollow feeling in his chest. The next morning, Leo made a decision that felt like a door slamming shut on an old life. He pressed his finger against the colorful icons on his screen. They began to wiggle under his touch, waiting to be cleared away. One by one, he clicked the small button. Delete, delete, delete. By the time he was finished, his home screen was a blank, empty blue. He promised himself he would stay away for 90 days. The first week was the hardest. Leo felt like a ghost. When he stood in line for coffee, his hand reached for his empty pocket. When a professor stopped talking for a moment, he felt a strange panic, a fear that he was being forgotten. If he wasn't posting, did he even exist? Without the constant noise of the digital world, the silence was heavy and thick. By the second week, the panic turned into a dragging boredom. Time began to stretch. One afternoon, he sat on a wooden bench and watched the sunlight catch the edges of the red maple leaves. He sat there for a long time, realizing he didn't know how to just look at something without trying to show it to someone else. He felt the weight of his own attention, and it was uncomfortable. On a Tuesday afternoon, a new sound pulled him toward the basement of the campus arts building. It was a rhythmic, rasping noise, followed by the sharp, clean scent of fresh pine and oil. He had walked past this door 100 times, but he had always been too busy looking at his screen to notice it. He pushed the door open and stepped into a woodworking shop. An old man with silver hair and a leather apron was standing over a workbench, carefully shaving a thin curl of wood from a chair leg. Leo watched him for a long time. The man didn't look up. He wasn't hurried. He wasn't checking a clock. He was just there, present in the scent of the wood and the steady sound of the blade. "Can I try?" Leo asked softly. The man looked up, his eyes sharp and clear. "It takes patience," he said, gesturing to the workbench. "This oak has its own rhythm. It won't be rushed just because you're in a hurry. If you fight the grain, the wood will fight back. You have to listen to it." Leo began to visit the shop every afternoon. At first, he was terrible. He was impatient, wanting the wood to bend to his will immediately. He ruined 3 planks of cedar because he tried to force the cuts, leaving jagged, splintered edges that looked like physical manifestations of his own frustration. He would stare at the ruined wood, feeling the old urge to reach for his phone and distract himself from the failure. But the old man, Silas, would just point to a new piece of wood. "Again," he would say. "Slower this time." As the days turned into weeks, something in Leo's mind began to shift. The phantom itch in his pocket started to fade. He spent 4 hours one Tuesday just sanding a single piece of cherry wood. He watched the dust settle on his shoes and felt the heat building in his palms. He followed the grain with his fingertips until the wood felt like silk. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the past or the future. He was just there in that moment with the wood. By day 45, Leo's room looked different. He had replaced the tangled charging cables with books about design and small wooden joints he had practiced making. His friends noticed a change, too. When they spoke to him, Leo looked them in the eye. He didn't look at his lap. He didn't flinch when a phone buzzed on the table. He was actually there, listening to the cadence of their voices. He started sketching, not for a post, but for himself. He drew chairs, tables, and a small cabinet he wanted to build. He found that his focus had returned, stronger than it had ever been. He could read 50 pages of a book without his mind wandering. He could sit in a quiet room and not feel the need to escape it. By the 3rd month, Leo had finished his first major project. It was a simple desk made of reclaimed oak. The wood was heavy and dark, with deep knots that told the story of the tree's life. It wasn't perfect. There was a small gap in one corner where a joint didn't quite meet, and the stain was a little uneven on the legs. But when he ran his hand over the solid surface, he felt a rush of pride that no like or comment had ever given him. He had built something that would last. He had turned his time into something solid. The 90 days came to an end on a Tuesday in November. Leo sat at his new desk and took his phone out of his drawer. He looked at the black screen. He thought about the apps, the endless scrolls, and the thousands of faces he would never meet. He realized he didn't hate the apps. They were just tools. But he had been using a hammer to try and build a soul, and it hadn't worked. He reinstalled one app to message his mother, then he put the phone back in the drawer. He didn't feel the need to see the sunset in Bali anymore. He could see the sunset through his own window, the orange light spilling over his wooden desk, and for the first time, that was enough. Leo picked up his chisel and went back to work. He had a career to build, and he wanted to make sure he did it with his own 2 hands. If you found a quiet moment of peace in this story, please consider subscribing to join us for the next one.